Welcome all to the Tortillas and Takes podcast. You are on once again with your boy, I'll be sure. And Saturday was a hell of a day. Part of a whole bunch of stuff going on. Texas Tech, of course, played Colorado. With that, a lot of fanfare. We were on Fox, not Fox Sports One, not Fox Sports Network, not Fox News, but Fox. Right? They put us on the SummerSlam screen. To play Colorado, play Coach Prime. This was a game that we talked about in the preview from the very beginning. Was the biggest ticket in town. A lot of alumni came. I know it's not a homecoming, but a lot of alumni came back into town. It was really a big game. Big noon kickoff was there from Fox, and two guys that were there watching Big Noon kickoff is my co-host, starting off with the radio expert himself, Joe Lopez. What's going on, Joe?
Albert, how are you doing this evening, sir? All is well over here. Despite what took place on Saturday evening, I had myself a good time with Jeremy there in the morning for the Big Noon kickoff, and then after that, I walked around and got involved with some of the other stuff around Rockin' pregame. Met Corey Carr, met a couple of old Tech players, Blackshear, things like that. So it was overall, the whole day was a great day, with just minus the outcome. But, it is what it is at this point. But we'll talk about it and we'll see what we can figure out.
We will talk about it. Also, part of the crazy kids in the crowd throwing tortillas was the People's Champ, Jeremy Gillen. What's up, Jeremy?
I didn't actually throw any tortillas. Didn't throw any tortillas, but we were surrounded by a lot of really cheery folks. There was a lot of really cool signs. Man, Jonah had a good time. Like, we got there early. We got some really good spots, only to be ruined by the fact that I had to take a pee like an hour in. I was like, oh my God, I cannot. Like, it was one of those, it was just such a debatable moment of, we have a great spot. We can see the stage, except whenever everybody throws their signs up and you can't see anything. And but ironically, we ended up leaving, going to the restroom, coming back, and then we were like ushered around to the other side of the stage. Anyway, we ended up getting closer, and we ended up getting like the camera was like right in front of us when they did a pan by. It was Joe and me right there, like we were the front guys. So it all worked out for tortillas and takes, baby. But no, the rest of the day's a blur. It is what it is. So here we are. I've never been so upset about being so possibly right about being 8-4. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I mean, don't speak too soon. Don't speak too soon. But so let's talk about it. So Big Noon kickoff was there. Before we get into the actual game, it did seem like it was it looked like the guys, Rob Stone, Matt Leinart, Mark Ingram, all of them had a really great time while they were there. I watched it at the sanctity of my own home, avoiding all the tortillas being thrown. It seemed like Mark Ingram, after a while, just said, "You screw analysis. I'm just throwing tortillas back and forth." He was, Joey. Some surprise. Danny Amendola joined the crew. Joey McGuire joined the crew to talk about Mahomes' jersey. Michael Crabtree eventually joined the crew and got a chance to trash talk Deion Sanders back and forth. Right, there was a whole segment about the Joey McGuire Deion Sanders love fest, and they it is interesting. They are legitimate, really good friends, right? Like, it's not even just a show. Deion, everyone likes to act like they're friends with Deion, but Deion's like, nah, Joey is legitimately my guy, and actually even gave like a Joey McGuire history lesson during Big Noon kickoff. So all in all, I think Texas Tech really proved and showed themselves to be a great fan base. I think Matt Leinart said it's one of the favorite trips that he's had this year. I think the Big Noon kickoff in general was a good representation of Tech. I had people texting me that didn't know, like, what the hell's up with this tortillas thing, right? And like, though that, I know that's just a joke. It was something to say, okay, well, y'all are watching. Like, no matter what, all right, y'all are all watching and you're all getting a chance to know. And at kickoff, the rain of tortillas, it wasn't the greatest I've seen, but it's top 5 for sure. I mean, it was pretty incredible. So like the fanfare and how hype everyone was for this game was definitely top tier, Joe.
Yeah, it's just like we had talked about in our preview pod. Like, where would this game stack up with other games over the last 10 plus years that came to Lubbock, Texas, without already knowing what kind of outcome it was? This going into this season, this game was circled, like we all know, for various reasons. And now that Colorado was having success, you wanted to be that team to knock them off of their high horse, and it just didn't happen that way. But as far as the crowd goes, the energy around the stadium, I was inside the stadium, watched the entire game, and it was, like I said, it was probably one of the best atmospheres I had been around in a long time. Maybe last year when Oregon came into town, something very similar to that. But overall, the tortillas were flying, the energy was up. I don't know if they showed this on the televised version, but they did. This, the thing that the fans do, that banner, and one of them just said Showtime or Game Time or something like that with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh yeah, the tifo.
Yeah.
The tifo.
So
Yep, they did show that on the broadcast.
that was really cool to see, because I had never seen that at a football game in Jones Stadium in my entire life. So but like I said, just the energy around the entire stadium, from once I got there at 6:45 in the morning to almost 7:30 whenever I left. We were there. So good and bad, we'll talk about it. But yeah, as far as energy goes and how the whole game before the game was going on, it was a great atmosphere.
And the Yin Yang twins were there. Can't forget.
Aye. That's right.
I love it. So let's talk about it. I mean, really, I think big game, and I will say, I think Colorado also realized, I don't think they over or underestimated Texas Tech either. I think Colorado looked at Texas Tech and said, okay, well, this is a 6-3 team. They're not ranked, but they're still pretty good. We're going on the road. They talked about the atmosphere and how the atmosphere was going to be, and Texas Tech definitely brought the atmosphere. Like I think this year, I think the Jones kind of 2 years ago in Joey's first year, the Jones was back, and I feel like every year in a new coach's first year, it's pretty strong. The Jones is pretty strong, right? Tuberville's first year was strong. Kingsbury's first year was very strong. Even Wells' first year was stronger that year than it was the latter two. Last year it waned. Last year it kind of dipped off a little bit. I think this year it's back. This year the Magic's back in a big way. And so even as we get down to this season, even after disappointing losses like Baylor and TCU and Washington State, it still was strong for this game. And Colorado did not underestimate Texas Tech at all. And they came in, though they fell down 13-0, they knew what they had to do here. And so, Jeremy, before we get into the details of this game, what were your thoughts, directly heading into this game? What were you feeling good? Were you like, I don't know, this is a good, they got the Sanders boys over
there. Joe's laughing. So we were leaving
be honest. You be honest.
Be honest. What are you, David Beckham? Be honest. Be honest. So we were leaving the Big Noon kickoff, and we crossed paths with some guys that I did the pregame show with last season with Norrance. And just had to hop on because they were doing like interviews, like vlogging for like live stream vlogging and stuff like that. Handed me the mic and we were just kind of chatting it up. And he's like, all right, give me your prediction for the game. Give me a prediction for the game. And I was excited because we had Big Noon kickoff. I was like, you know what? Kind of feel it, bro. Gotta feel it, bro. And I said, I think Texas, I flipped the script. I said, I think Texas Tech could get this win 37-30. I think we can do it. Because I felt, after seeing all the energy of Big Noon kickoff, seeing the excitement that people were camped out from 4 a.m. Like Texas Tech has not had this level of excitement for a game in some time. And like stats be damned, like having fandom, and Joe's right, like even watching on TV, this was the most active Jones has been in some time. Like that makes a difference. Like you see all of these other teams, I was watching the Ohio State game earlier in the day where they waxed Purdue. But I mean, their stadium is full and it is rocking, and Purdue never had a chance. And so like having a real home field advantage, I thought after the big noon kickoff, I was like, it's probably going to be wild this afternoon. And I think we're going to get the upper hand here. It felt like magic. So I called the 37-30 victory. I was excited. And I tweeted it early in that first quarter. My heartbeat, I'm at like 131 beats per minute. I am feeling jacked up. Like I'm ready to put the helmet on and get out there because I felt just so excited for the game. They did everything right to get us stoked.
Well, and they rewarded you early on. Early on, they rewarded you, right? They started off the game, first play, big pass to Josh Kelly, right? And it was like, okay, Tech's in it. And then right after, not too far after that, big pass to Jalen Conyers for the touchdown. 2 minutes into the game, Tech's up 7-0. And, Jalen Conyers, some Colorado fans are talking about that may have been a fumble at the goal line. I also argue that it was probably targeting at the goal line. Let's call it all ends well, or all's well that ends well. But 7-0, Texas Tech's up. And then not only that, but right after that, Texas Tech forces a punt, gets the ball back, starts driving again to potentially score again, but then gets stopped short. But either way, 2 drives in, two scoring drives, and then again forces another 3 and out, gets another field goal. It's 13-0 in the first quarter, Joe.
Yeah, it was man, the excitement in there. Like Jeremy said, if I had a watch that told me how fast my heart was beating, it was probably somewhere north of that. Not only because my seats are a little bit up there, whatnot, from walking and stuff like that, and all the walking I had done prior to the game. It was just like the energy around the stadium. And Kitley was calling some great plays early on. There was a play there where he moved Jacoby Williams out of the backfield, pulled a linebacker with him, and he just had him run a go route. And then we came right back underneath that with a little drag route coming across the side. And, there was so much green right there. And you started to think, you're like, okay, now 13-0. Yeah, I know Colorado's probably going to settle in at some point in time because this is just their mantra and this is how they work and stuff like that. They'll just, one stop at a time, get the ball back to our offense, and we're able to go about in our business because we have the weapons on our offensive side to, put up points. And that wasn't happening. The crowd noise was in Shadur's head. There was some penalties, some pre-snaps. I mean, this was all going for Tech early on in that first quarter. You're just like, okay, now we came to play. This is how it's going to be. And you just wanted to keep that momentum going from quarter to quarter. It didn't have to be perfect, but all you had to do was not give them the ball with a short field, and all you had to do was just at least get the points whenever you had the chance. And in the first quarter, we sure did
that. The problem is you kind of did a little foreshadowing there is that all we had to do was continue it, and we did not. The second quarter happened, and we starting out with a 3 and out, and a big piece of it. I mean, we talked about in the preview, obviously. Todd Brooks is the record. Byron Hanspar's record was glaring over this game, right? We talked about it. It was very much within reach. It wasn't going to be easy to get, but it was very much within reach. And I know we will. I made a joke about as far as how I really hope he got in this game because I don't want him getting it in Stillwater, right? And I'm sure the coaching staff said the same thing, right? Colorado, even on those 3 scoring drives, did a really good job of, if we don't do nothing else, we're stopping that running game. Right. In those 3 running drives, other than a 5-yard gain that Taj had, it was nothing but 1-yard gains, 2-yard gains, or loss of yardage. They really stuffed it. And so in the second quarter, although up 13-0 and with the ball, you're now the passing game, which had killed it up to that point, is now the one struggling, right? Starting off with that first 3 and out, Baron Morton having to throw the ball away on a 3rd and 7. Then you get into the second quarter, at the beginning of the second quarter. Then you get the ball back and you get a sack, right, by Arden Walker. Then you get a false start, so penalties are compounding. And then a nice little Zach Kelly special with a run by Todd Brooks on a 3rd and 15. They'll never know. But they knew. They only got 1 yard on it. Right. And then from there, so you go in a situation where you're up 13-0, and on 2 occasions you're up 13-0, your defense gets you the ball back, yet you cannot do anything with it. Back-to-back 3 and outs. And finally, Shadur Sanders is too good of a quarterback. This offense is too good of a team to allow that to happen too much longer after a myriad of situations where Colorado had already punted the ball 4 times. It was enough. They ended up getting the ball. Shedeur has a nice pass out to Will Shepherd for 19 yards, gets into Texas Tech territory. He gets back to Will Shepherd to get it near the red zone, and then he has a nice little play out to LeJontay Wester, 23 yards to the house. It's a game again, 13-7. Jeremy,
bad angle on that too when that play just
miserable angle.
Yeah,
like, why
absolutely.
are you not creating the edge there? You're just like, well, let me get. Abysmal. That was an abysmal. The shift from the first and second quarter for me was also very frustrating to watch because, like you mentioned, and like some Colorado fans have tweeted us at this point, they did do such a good job at shutting down Taj, and it was only, and there's me sarcastically quoting somebody on Twitter, it was only when we switched to pass defense that Taj Brooks started running well. I'm like, okay, well, it's all one defense, you idiot. But like, yes, they shut down the pass defense, and then we didn't like they shut down our ability to run. And then when we started like when they kind of hunkered down more and they kind of did more zone, I think it was really Baron Morton just is ineffectual towards that. And I think there was an error where it was like, okay, well, we're not going to run as much in the second quarter. We're going to continue. It was exactly the same issue you had against who
Arizona.
No. I'm trying to remember who McGuire said this about. Maybe it was Iowa State or it was TCU, but it was like, hey, we were passing so well. It was TCU. It was like we were passing so well, we had to just keep passing, and that was only true for the first quarter, and in the second quarter it was all but gone. But they keep trying to press the issue, and it's just like it was frustrating to watch. The number one offense in the Big 12 score 0 points in a quarter. Like, if you're going to be the number one offense in the Big 12, like, I want you to be getting some points somewhere. And the inability to do that, even a field goal, man, like the inability to do that was so hard to see the transition, because it was like, damn, you're putting all this on the defense, but the defense was coming through in the first half. I'll tell you that much. The defense, DeRuyter was not playing games when he was switching it up on Shedeur, because he was linebacker stunting. He was making Jacob Rodriguez look like he was going to blitz, and they dropped into coverage. He's spying. He was bringing the blitz off the defensive backs. Like, he was pulling out he said, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at this kid, because when he's comfortable, that's when he's going to ball out. And Shedeur did not look comfortable that whole first half. And I applaud DeRuyter's game plan for that. That was excellent.
He disguised coverages a lot in this game. There was a lot of disguised coverages in this game. You mentioned, a lot of situations where not blitz. I will say, though he confused Shedeur really wasn't under pressure, and it wasn't for lack of trying. Like, listen, if sometimes you're going to blitz and it's not going to get home, and I get that, right? But so this is a little bit different than some other games where we've rushed 3 or haven't really done a good job getting to the quarterback. This was a game where we were trying. We were, like Jeremy was saying, we were blitzing Jacob Rodriguez, we were blitzing Ben Roberts, we were trying with some safety blitzes at times. CJ Basketball was able to get in the backfield a couple times there too. And they just did a great job of picking it up. But for the most part in the first half, Shedeur did struggle. And even on that next drive afterwards, he had a 12-play drive, got into the red zone, and he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off. Like, he's having difficulty. And Shedeur this year has, as we got into the second half, before we get there, Shedeur this year has really tried to be a pocket passer, right? He's tried not to be this, run around, guy that's, trying to like Caleb Williams, right? He's not trying to be this guy that's just having to always make magic happen. He's going through his reads, doing the smart thing that he's learned in the offseason. Texas Tech forced him to revert back to being the guy that's just running around, because he didn't have a choice at times. At times, everything's covered. The secondary, especially in the first half, played great. So many times Shedeur's looking around, and couldn't find anybody. Our O-line's holding up for him, but he just can't find anybody, and he's just waiting for it to come open. Sorry. And so even on the next drive, they get down the red zone, but again, Shedeur's waiting, can't find anybody, throws it away, and they end up having to settle for a field goal. Tech keeps the lead. Right before halftime, Give us enough time for us to get into field goal range. I will say this, right? So, and this is where we start questioning things. So we get up, the field goal is good, kicker turns off. Jacoby Williams, who is my favorite young player on this team. I made that declaration on Twitter. I'm going to say it here as well. He's my favorite young player on this team. Jacoby Williams. Love him. Has a return, comes this close to breaking it all the way. But either way, brings it all the way to the Colorado 42. You have 20 seconds to go in this half, right? 20 seconds to go in the half. You're now at the ball 42. Game plan has changed. We can get points. We can get real points. I'm thinking 20 seconds. We have all 3 timeouts. You gotta try to push the issue. Let's get it close to the end zone and do one or two things. To try to score a touchdown or get a really easy field goal. Gino Garcia had just made a 53-yarder. He was feeling himself. But mind you, up until this week, we didn't trust Gino Garcia to do anything more than 45. Right? So let's get an easy field goal. Instead, Joe, we get a Taj Brooks run. Okay. A Baron Morton scramble that turns into a run. Okay. And then a throwaway. And Gino Garcia has to come out for another 53-yarder, which he's not Superman. He misses. What is your thoughts on settling? Because that's what it seemed like. Settling for a 53-yard field goal instead of trying to actually get a touchdown or at least get close to the end zone there.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed knowing that we had 3 timeouts. You could go towards the middle of the field. You could go to the sideline. You had options there. The Taj run, and I think, is to set something else up, but you don't take a timeout right after the fact and you just let it play out. Then you take the timeout. I think you lost a couple seconds there. But the play calling itself, man, it just right there. This is whenever you earn your paycheck as a coordinator. Defense or offensive side. The same thing goes for the Colorado defensive coordinator. You're put in a bind. You guys got to step up. You got to make the right calls. On the offensive side, you got to make the right calls to put you in a position to get points on the board. And you really, really wasted that Jacoby Williams kickoff return by negligent play calling there towards the end of the half. And, it cost us 3. I could, from my vantage point, because that was on my side of the end zone, or my side of the field, so I didn't know where he missed. Was he even close? Any of that stuff?
He was
but
close.
The wind was swirling a lot.
Yeah.
At one point in time, he was kicking with the wind at his back. At the other point in time, he was kicking directly into it. I mean, that's West Texas for you. So I mean, It's just one of those things. I think you could have put yourself in better position to even score potentially a touchdown, but an even easier field goal attempt.
Yeah, I mean, he was close. I don't think anyone should blame Gino.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
In nowhere do I blame Gino. Again, we didn't even think he could kick more than a 45-yarder up until that game, right? So nobody's blaming Gino. And again, all my criticisms of coaches will always be regardless of whether it made it or not. Like, we're still having the same conversation even if he makes that field goal of why would you settle for a 53-yarder, right? That's how coaching works, right? But so that's when I'm looking at that, and like you said, I great word usage there when it comes to the negligent play calling and wasting an incredible kickoff return, right? If that was the play call and Jacoby Williams had just had a 20-yard return, balls in the 23, we're not having this conversation, right? Okay, but instead you do that same play call after an opportunity to get real points, not hey a crazy long field goal for no reason. It just didn't make any sense. And this is where, and it was almost like this was a microcosm of other things to come. Other microcosms of things to come was early in this game. Before we get to the second half, early in this game, I want to say on the first or second drive, there was a false start penalty, and I mentioned it. And actually, no, sorry, it wasn't a false start penalty. It was 2 penalties that happened in this game, and it was it ended up being like illegal hands to the face or something like that, offsides or whatever, for 5 yards, and then it was a roughing the passer. In that first quarter, the referee pointed the wrong way for the first penalty and then pointed the right way for the second penalty. Mind you, was on the same team, right? And when that happened, I was like, that's funny. But no big deal. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, that's okay. People make mistakes, whatever. Again, foreshadowing. of what was going to end up being one of the worst refereed games I've ever seen. And again, in football, 2019 Western Conference Finals, Rockets Warriors is going to be the worst refereed game in any sport, period. But in football, that game was one of the worst. And again, I don't look at refereeing as one play or a ref, like the Saints Vikings game years ago where they missed that pass interference. Like, I'm not that a bad referee game isn't referees missing one play. But when it's an entire course of an entire game, it started in the first half with that missed call, and it just ballooned in the second half. But before we get there, Jeremy, halftime, Texas Tech's up 13-10. Are you feeling good about this game?
So I'll comment on the post Jacoby Williams run. Getting on their side of the field, I thought, oh my God, we're going to be able to score a touchdown and get this thing 20-10 or whatever. I was like, this is going to be really great. This is going to be a great spot, 2-possession game. That's how you want to start out, especially since they're getting the ball back. I was like, this is literally the best scenario that could happen. And he ran first touch. The first touch was a run. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to say no to Taj Brooks running the ball because if he breaks off more than whatever, because he can, great. It was the following two that I was like, you could have schemed a deeper pass. If you could take a shot take a shot. Why not? It was so conservative for me that I was like, I don't think that they want to win this game. Hard to tell because you can't lose. Because if you throw a pick and you get a tackle, I mean, then they're playing with like 10 seconds to get down the field. Insane, right? So like, why not? So that was really frustrating. But I took a deep breath. I was like, okay, well, 13-10. We are playing out of our mind defensively. Like Colorado has not scored. I tweeted it out. They have scored for about a month. They've been able to get points in every quarter. This was the first time that they haven't been able to score in like over a month in a quarter. I was like, that's insane for one of the worst defenses in the Big 12. Good for us. So not sustainable, but we're doing a lot more than we should be. So let's get a little bit of halftime adjustments. Let's get serious right now. I was optimistic enough to say that we could maybe pull this thing out, despite what I had seen offensively, the the complete collapse of an offensive mindset. I thought, man, this might be like the Iowa State game. We can make it like the Iowa State game. That was my hope.
Well, I will say, Kenzie actually says in the chat, which is interesting because she said that this coaching staff is conservative when they don't need to be and aggressive when they don't need to be. And she's right. Like, it doesn't make sometimes like we'll go for it on our side of the field or do a ridiculous, stupid, fake punt on our side of the field. But then when you get a Jacoby Williams return like this, you just say, this is good enough, right? So second half begins and referees nonsense begins because right early on we get a hold on AJ McCarty. And I tweeted this because in that same play, now some people you could argue that was an intentional grounding. A running back was somewhat close, so maybe it was definitely an offensive hold. I actually saw two people holding on that play, but no. So when I saw the flag, I'm like, okay, they're not going to call it grounding. They're calling. Like I saw the holding call. I'm like, all right, cool, offensive holding. Oh no, wrong. Silly me. We're not allowed to have good things. So sure enough, we get a hold on that one, and then Shedeur starts running because Shedeur reverts back. I mentioned he reverts back to his old ways of like nobody's open. The secondary's killing it. Nobody's open. I gotta run, and he starts running. He starts making things happen. Shedeur Sanders is playing well, and he runs for a touchdown. And just like that, after being up the entire half, all it took was one drive in the second half, bad coaching at the end of the first half, and questionable calls from referees to end up being a Colorado lead, just like that.
Was that the roughing the passer drive? That first one?
That was the roughing the passer drive. Yep, on Chapman Lewis. Yes, sir. Who could forget? That also happened on that play.
Yeah, that's because that was on a third down, if I'm not mistaken.
I was so yeah. So actually, and I how can I forget? So the same drive. So this happened actually. This only happened 4 plays later, mind you.
Yep.
After the what I would consider a misholding. 4 plays later, Chapman Lewis on an incredible blitz hits Shadur Sanders on a 3rd and 6 above his knees, right at his stomach, right how you're supposed to tackle. Textbook, incomplete pass. You got him off the field. You're going to have a difficult field goal to goal. Instead, they call a roughing the passer. It's something that Joe McGuire actually brought up in the post game. I was very surprised how he talked what he was saying in the post game, and that was one of the plays that he brought up. But go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, all of that was like the downfall of the referees. It was terrible. And I can't say that the refereeing lost us this game, because we could start talking about the offensive line here shortly and how terrible that showing was, allowing 7 sacks on Morton and making Taj have to make cuts in the backfield before he even got the handoff. But that drive itself, you wanted to come out and put a stop to it, and that roughing the passer kind of took a lot of the wind out of the sails of this Texas Tech defense, because it's like, what else do we have to do? We're playing exactly how we're supposed to, and then we get flagged for playing football the right way. And it took a lot out of that defense right after that play. I mean, they stepped up and made other plays for the remainder of the game, but that definitely took a lot out of them after that, because it was, to Jeremy's point, that blitz, or to your point, Albert, that blitz that DeRuyter called there with Chapman Lewis flying in. I mean, that was textbook. So it's just, like I said, the morale of the defense took a big hit after that penalty was called.
Now, the offense came back with a vengeance, right? The next drive, really good drive by the offense, really good play calling. Starting off with that nice pass to Josh Kelly for 20 yards. And it was consistent, right? We didn't really hit. The only third downs we hit on that entire drive was 2 3rd-and-1s, and then right at the very end on the 2-yard line, going for that 4th-and-1, which I think was the right call on the 2. And Taj Burks goes in for a touchdown. Way to respond. And this is when I really thought, okay, boom, we're in it. We have a game and we're in it. We're going to go blow for blow. The problem is, I don't think this offense is good enough to go blow for blow with Colorado. And the next drive, again, we have another issue where Baskerville gets called once again for that defensive hold. This is where things start getting a little ridiculous, right? If I'm not mistaken, or anyway, so this is when things start getting a little ridiculous, right? This is if I'm not mistaken, the very next drive is when Taj Brooks, gets slung out of bounds, and we have the situation to Coy Eakin right after that, where there's a bunch of just questionable things going on, and Baron Morton on the 3rd-and-5 gets obliterated, right, and no call. Things start to really, really take effect right soon after that. So I didn't think this offense was good enough to go toe to toe with Colorado. And in that 3rd quarter, Colorado had 3 possessions and scored 3 touchdowns. And like you said, a lot of that really took a lot of these penalties that we kept getting. Some of them was warranted, some of them were not. Just really took the wind out of the sails. Those 3 drives, each of those drives had at least a 10-yard penalty enforced in each of those 3 touchdown drives by Colorado. It really was really tough. And then make matters worse, 2 of the offensive drives for Texas Tech, both were turnover on downs. One because of that idiotic fake punt. Go ahead, Jeremy.
What do you want me to say? Because I'm going to resign myself from talking about refereeing. I think that something you said, Albert, warrants concern about. I don't think that the Texas Tech offense is good enough to X. And that in itself is the discrepancy that I think the larger Texas Tech fan base needs to start having with itself. regarding Zach Kittley and Joey McGuire in terms of how they're running this offense. Because if you have, by the numbers, the best offense in the Big 12 and you can't X against whatever defense it is, you got a problem. If you can't X with one of the best wide receivers, if you can't X with with the best running back, if you can't X with a five-star wide receiver who rides the bench like it's his job, I'm just joking with that one. But if you can't X, Y, or Z with the number one Big 12 offense, then there's a serious issue there. And I think that something that we are having a problem with is that we may be trying to shove a square through the round hole. And I saw a really good tweet that was about not our team at all. It was about another team who is running a pro-style offense, and they had some tremendous looks against their opponent, who I will as much say plays in Florida. They had a lot of good looks against a very good opponent. And it was because they played a pro-style offense that was more complementary to the talent that they had. And I'm wondering if this like pseudo air raid, whatever we're doing, is just not what Texas Tech needs to be going forward. Because I mean, we've talked about it on this podcast before, is that the air raid is in a way outdated because the reason it was so successful because nobody was defending it. Nobody knew how to defend it. So when they were running all this air raid stuff, it was crazy working because nobody knew how to do it. But then we started introducing like the dime stack. We started introducing all these like Cloud9. We had a lot of defenses developed because of that. And now the air raid is a pretty standard thing to defend. So I think that maybe a question for Texas Tech going forward, in this game especially, because like this game is an illustration of like, how do you have the talent and quote unquote, like the offensive mindset, like mind that you have? Because we were all hype about like the athletic department was all hype about Zach Kittley coming in because of what he did at Western Kentucky, what Bailey Zappi did at Western Kentucky. And it was like, this guy can do no wrong. He can put up all the numbers. And that's all they wanted were the numbers. But now we've got the numbers and not the wins. And it's like, there's kind of a weird discrepancy here. And I think we're all kind of sniffing around it right now. More people are coming around to this. The numbers are kind of empty because when it's mattering most, we're kind of making the wrong decisions. Why the hell are you fake punting on your own side of the field? Like, if you're going to do that, you might as well just run a Hail Mary and just try with your actual quarterback. I don't. The coaching mistakes are still year one. It's time.
You know what's funny about the fake punt is like it felt like half the team didn't even know they were doing it. That's like almost to the point where I'm like, maybe McGuire didn't call it and the punter just went rogue. Because like a lot of the players didn't even think they were doing it. Like, what the hell is happening here?
What made me so upset about that came post game whenever they asked him about it. Whenever he said, I had my two guys that were just lined up too close to each other. So how many times did you practice this before you decided to implement it in a game for them to not even know where to line up properly to where they wouldn't cross pass? For me, that was like, come on, man. Like, don't even answer the question at that point. Just say I plead the fifth and move on. Like, let's go.
We do got to talk about another person because I know we're going to talk about we talked about Zach Kittley a little bit. We talked about the refs a lot. We talked about Joe McGuire. Baron Morton come front and center because Baron Morton did not have a good second half at all. The interception. I'll say this: Nikhil Hill-Green, great interception. Right, like that's sometimes you got to call it and say, you know what, good job, right? But some missed passes. I mentioned before how he has happy feet, but also it's weird because he has happy feet, but also doesn't leave the pocket. Like he has happy feet, but also stays in the pocket too long. How does that happen? Both. He doesn't have any situational awareness. He got sacked and easily got and fumbled the ball, giving Colorado the ball back pretty quickly. It actually happened twice, one ending up in a Shiloh Sanders touchdown, fumble recovery touchdown, which was pretty funny because he scores a touchdown. One, nobody thought it was a touchdown. We all thought it was incomplete. I still think it was incomplete. But either way, he scores a touchdown to no fanfare. He does his dad's dance, and our little, I don't know if he's a 16-year-old, an 18-year-old, 20-year-old, but he was ready, trying to get the ball, and he was about to get jumped
Doing
by
his
the Sanders
job,
family.
baby.
He was about to get jumped by the Sanders family. They were like, hey, Shiloh doesn't get a lot of this. Okay? Yeah. Shiloh never does good things. He needs this more than you know.
What made me laugh about that, too, is when Bucky, Deion Sanders Jr., pushed that kid, and he obviously did not get any of the traits that Shiloh or Shadur got. He's like the smaller guy that was like, bro, come, stop. Just stop. You're making a fool of yourself.
SMU did not feed him well because he looks smaller now.
Yeah, he looks way small. So
but all in all, like, listen, and I'm going to cut to the chase. 41-27, Colorado ends up winning this game based off of a 31-point outburst in the second half. Texas Tech, the game was a lot closer than the final score is. Joey also said the same thing, which I feel like we can say that. You probably shouldn't. But, the game was a lot closer than the final score states. I think the biggest pieces is that when that fumble return touchdown, we had an opportunity. We were down by a touchdown with 2 minutes to go in the game, and we just, again, did not have the offense to go toe-to-toe. It's just as simple as that. We didn't have the offense to go toe-to-toe, whether that's on Baron Morton, whether that's the O-line, whether that's Zach Kitley, all of the above. Like, we just did not have the offense. I don't know how y'all felt, but 2 minutes ago, I'm like, yeah, we can mathematically win this game, and I think most teams would be confident we can win this game. But I know this offense, and I wasn't very confident that this team would do what it takes, and my lack of confidence was rewarded with the Shiloh Sanders touchdown of all people.
Yeah, man, it's just the offensive line altogether. I mean, if you do the trifecta, right? Crappy play calling, crappy offensive line play, and then your quarterback's, scared back there, just, all over the place. I mean, you're not going to be successful at all. Like, there's just no way. I mean, both of our tackles were getting beat up. Sheridan Wilson was getting beat up worse than the Cincinnati game with Dante Corleone was ripping him up. And this guy that he was going against was a whole lot smaller than Dante Corleone, which is crazy to me to see him get blown up like that. I mean, and it wasn't even anything special that they were doing. They just outplayed and outworked our guys, plain and simple,
Caleb Rogers is funny because every time they mention Caleb Rogers on a broadcast, and it's happened at least 4 times this year, they say Caleb Rogers is the most veteran tackle in college football. You wouldn't think this would happen from him. I heard that at least 4 times this year. Like, it's, whether it's a penalty or him giving up a sack or something, it's Caleb Rogers, the most snaps in college football. He's had X amount of snaps. You wouldn't think that would happen from him. But nobody has anything else. Like, usually with a guy like this good, it's like, all conference tackle or team captain tackle. It's consistent of he's played a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He has played a lot. But Caleb, I'm not saying Caleb Rogers is bad, but he's also not good. I'm not saying Baron Morton is bad, but he's also not good. I can say that about so many of these players on offense not named Todd Brooks, Josh Kelly, or Caleb Douglas, right? Like, a lot of these players, I'm like, I don't think they're bad, but I don't really think they're good either. I think a big piece of this game, and I know some people don't agree with me. I tweeted it and I got some pushback, but I still believe it, is that Colorado's a better team. They're just a better team. To me, their quarterback's better. Their O-line is better. Our receivers are really good. Their receivers are better. Their D-line is better. And yeah. And so when all you have, I think the secondary is a push, at least in this game. Our secondary and their secondary played about even. So when all you have is your running back is good and your two linebackers or running backs better and your two linebackers are better. So of the 22 players that are on the field, you have an advantage at three players. You're not winning games. And I think that's in the second half. To me, when I looked at it, I'm like, this team in white is just outplaying and just better at this point than the team in gray. We haven't even talked about the Mahomes jerseys in gray. Like there's the Colorado team, and I think we punched them in the mouth early. They took the punch. Deion Sanders said they would take the punch. Deion Sanders said they'd be okay, and they were. And then at halftime, only down 3, they said, "Okay, we took their best hit. Now let's punch them in the mouth." And they did in the third quarter, and we couldn't push back.
Yeah, we couldn't push back at all.
I'll say this much, man. I think Deion actually, so culture aside, I think Deion is a really good coach in this facet. I think he does a great job at convincing his guy. And I talked about in the pre-pod, at convincing, or the preview, that convincing his guys that they're going to win, convincing his guys that they're just better. And you know what? That translates kind of negatively in some ways, but ultimately, like, I mean, you see the receivers when they're catching the ball and they're getting up, they're doing this number because they're
they have big gravitas. Yeah.
A lot of gravitas on the team from everybody. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, they were chirping so much at our guys. And yeah, on one end, it's like, okay, have some class. On the other end, it's like, these guys just believe that we're garbage and like that we don't deserve to be in the same field as them. And that paid off. Because even like on the Mahomes, I fucking wish, on the Morton like fumble at the end where it's like, hey, we got some time left, maybe we can go down. I tweeted that like, this is the reality, like 137, whatever, like just got to go 98 yards, so that I could use a sunny Philadelphia meme where he's like, hey, you stupid bitch. It's the only reason I tweeted that, because I knew it wasn't going to happen. But you could tell as soon as that ball went out, all the Texas Tech guys are standing around like, well, it's probably an incomplete. But the Colorado guys didn't care. They're saying, you know what, even if it's not, I'm going to take that ball and go in. And that is something this team is missing, is that killer instinct that we have somehow, like, we had it in the first year. We're losing it as McGuire's tenure goes on. Which is
what that is, Jeremy? That's good coaching. That when I watch this team, especially in the second half, this is a very well-coached team. Everybody likes to talk about Deion and this, that, and the other, and all the stuff that he does, and he's a prima donna, and I don't think I expected this Colorado team to be as well coached as they are. And I talked about in the preview pod how they have impressed me about how well coached they've been up to this point. But in this game, I'm like, no, this is a very well coached team. Shout out to Pat Shurmur. Shout out to other D coordinator whose name escapes me just now, Livingston. But this is a very
years at DC.
Yeah, very well coached team on both sides of the ball. And so you're getting, and when you have a well coached team, it's just you do things that you're supposed to, right? You do things like jumping on the ball just in case. You do things like sure tackling. I don't think they missed a single tackle in this game, right? Like, you do things like an O-line that kept Shedeur. I mentioned about anytime Shedeur was running around was because he'd already been back in the pocket for 5 seconds because everybody was covered, right? Like, our D-line, not for lack of trying. We tried blitzing. The O-line picked it up every time, right? Pat Shurmur knew, okay, they're going to blitz here. We're going to have the running back sit back there and pick it up. We're going to pick it up. And our D-line, which has struggled all year, I know they're not the best D-line, but the Colorado O-line did a really great job of picking everything up. Our O-line didn't. Right? Baron Morton was running for other reasons. Running wise, right? Todd Brooks finally got a little bit going in the second half, but he struggled all throughout the game, and it wasn't because of him, right? Listen, I'm gonna call it spade a spade. I just think Colorado. I think we played this Colorado team 10 times, we lose at least 7 of them. Like, that's just how I think it is. I think this team was just better, right? And then it's the same feeling I had. Actually, I don't know if I've had this feeling this year of a team just being flat out better, to be honest. Washington State, I think if we play that same game at a different location at a different time, I think it's a completely different game. right? Like they kicked our ass, but in Washington State on a Saturday night when their emotions were high. Like I think it's a different game elsewhere. Obviously, TCU and Baylor, different times, right? I think this was the first time this year, anyway, that Texas Tech played a team, and I'm like, nope, they're better. They're the better team. Joe?
Yeah, better in the places where we struggle, in the trenches. That was just, that was seen. That was seen mightily, especially in some of these Taj Brooks runs where you see him having from different angles of the game of all these moves and jukes that he was having to do before he even made it back to the line of scrimmage. And our guys were getting blown up, and much credit to their defensive line, man. They've been progressing along this whole season, being able to get home. I mean, and sack the quarterback. And, they added 7 against Texas Tech, where I think some of them, a couple of those may be on Barron for not wanting to get rid of the ball and just throw it out of bounds, live to play another day. I think he was taking a little bit of Shedur's playbook, hey, let me just try to extend this as much as I can. I'm going to have somebody get open, but he's just not the athlete Shedur is. And it is what it is. So I just think that between what was going on in the trenches for Colorado, offensively and defensively, man, there's nothing that you can't accomplish if you're not winning the battles up front. And that's why they won this football game.
Absolutely. So only thing I'll say is that, again, refereeing has to be better. Refereeing was really, really atrocious, just all in all. I mentioned the fact that I think that they didn't miss a Shiloh Sanders targeting. They missed at least 5 face masks. They were just, and also missed calls are one thing. This game was not under control. Apparently, they told Deion Sanders, because mind you, we're this podcast is very much against throwing things on the field. Absolutely against it. That's stupid. If it ain't a tortilla, don't do it. But the referee telling Deion Sanders that when he's complaining about it, well, your players shouldn't be blowing kisses to the crowd. You don't say that. Like that's
right.
That's dumb. Like you don't say that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like I'm not saying is now, mind you, if I'm Deion, I'm going to be as irate, and I'm going to tell my players, get your butts back, and then what are y'all doing? Like, don't be idiots, right?
Right.
But at the same time, what are the referees doing here? It seemed like a clown show, everything they were doing. So even from the very beginning of them getting the directions wrong, they didn't know what down it was. They didn't even get to that. They didn't know what down it was. Twice. It happened twice where they didn't know what down it was. And I think one of the times, because they didn't know what down it was, we called a run play on 3rd down thinking it was 2nd. And they corrected it after the fact. And, because, and listen, you could argue that shouldn't the coaches know it? The coach is going to do what the refs allow. If you tell me it's 2nd down, it's 2nd down. And I'm going to get that extra down if I can, right? So the fact that they didn't have the right down call twice is irresponsible. It's ridiculous. And so Joey, I'm sure he's going to pick up a fine. But I am glad he addressed it because it has to be better at this level. People on Twitter were talking about not just the Tech game. It was just a microcosm of Big 12 refereeing in general, right? It just, the whole thing, the fact that, like, missed calls, not understanding the direction teams were on, not getting which down the plays on, and then just not being able to control the game, control the crowd, control what's Todd Brooks is flung out of bounds, you do nothing, or gets hit excessively out of bounds, you do nothing. You call a phantom roughing the passer, nothing. Like stuff like this is, and actually there was one roughing the passer on Baron Morton that was nothing. Or on the Colorado side, like it was just a abysmally managed game by the referees, just completely asinine. And it's one that if you are the Big 12, you should never have that team together again. And I think the white hat shouldn't be the white hat, at least for the rest of the season. You got to go and do something else, right? So it's just completely terrible.
That's the football Angel Hernandez right there. That's what that was.
From my baseball people, that's terrible. This is awful. So there's that. But Texas Tech does lose 41-27. We fall to 6-4 on the season, and we are officially eliminated from. Technically we're not. No, we're still mathematically in it. in the Big 12 championship game. We are still mathematically in it, but let's be real, folks. We ain't in it. I don't think we were in it before the game. But mathematically we still are. I think the goal really right now is we got 2 more games left. Let's see if we can get for the 3rd year in a row a winning record in conference. Well, all I need is 1 more win for that. So that would be a pretty amazing feat in itself. So before I kind of talk about other our final thoughts here, I do want to run through some of the Big 12 games of the week. So going on in week 11, like we mentioned, Colorado, Texas Tech, that was the big game of the week. But other big games that happened in the Big 12, we did have the Holy War, 9th ranked BYU at Utah, and it lived up to the billing. Joe, you and I both said that this game was going to be closer than the experts think. And for a while, I thought we was wrong. I thought Utah was going to pull it out. Isaac Wilson, you bad boy. But then the second quarter ended.
Yeah, absolutely.
Utah came back and won the game with a game-winning field goal.
BYU, yeah.
I thought it, like I said, it's just one of those games with matchups, no matter how good, how bad each team is, it's just we play each other so damn much and we know each other. Whittingham's been how long the head coach at Utah? Like for 15 plus years. It's not like he's really changed anything over that course of time other than just the players that he has coming in and out. It's one of those games that happens every year. They know each other very well. I knew it was going to be close, man. And, hats off to Utah for showing some fight. That's the first time we've seen that in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, thanks. Another rivalry game, 17th ranked Iowa State did get stunned by Kansas. Look at Kansas showing some life, Germ.
Kansas showing life. And it still was an Iowa State home game. And Kansas coming out and doing something they were supposed to be doing all season, but just couldn't make it happen. And I tweeted out after the fact that, we want to be excited about the Iowa State win, but we may need to kind of pump the brakes there with the way that Kansas kind of rallied back. Kansas still trying to fight for some respect. They've got how many wins on the season? Maybe trying to fight for a little bit.
3-6. They
I was
got
gonna
a
say.
shot at bowl eligibility. They just got to beat 9th ranked BYU and 20th ranked Colorado to do it.
So great win seminal win for Kansas and last one of the season.
All right. Kansas does win 45-36. West Virginia beat Cincinnati 31-24. Battle of 2, middle of the pack teams there, Joe.
Yeah, that was a fun game by all accounts and everything that I've seen highlight wise. I mean, I didn't think that outcome was necessarily going to happen like that, but hats off to them boys in West Virginia, Morgantown, for coming out and playing some ball. Against a pretty solid Cincinnati team. I'm sorry for cutting you off, Albert.
No, you're good. West Virginia is such a big. I would argue both of these teams. I don't know what to make of them. I really want Tech to beat Oklahoma State because I do think West Virginia is not a game or a team where we can just say, "Oh, okay, nice little home win against West Virginia." They're going to come out. They're going to fight. They're 4-2 in conference right now. They're a win away from bowl eligibility themselves. And Neil Brown, listen, he is fighting for his coaching life as of right now, right? Their remaining games are Baylor, UCF, and Tech. So we will see what happens there. But West Virginia, good win there. UCF at Arizona State after their space game, and UCF just beating Utah like they stole something. There was some hope, I think, from Big Gene that they would carry that over to Arizona. They did not. They traveled 3 time zones to take this L, but it was a close game. They lose to Arizona State 31-35, Jerm.
Yeah, UCF having yet another game where they are up in the 4th and just kind of collapse towards the end. It's kind of a hard recipe for the Knights who, man, have had a lot more. I mean, we've talked them up. I mean, they've had good recruiting, but this year, Knights are kind of imploding, and we're all just watching something terrible happen in front of our eyes. Gus Malzahn, what's going on?
Yeah. No, I said Gene earlier. Yeah, Gene Chiswick and Gus Malzahn are the same person. I'm sorry.
They are. Who cares?
They are the same person. All right. And then, Joe, TCU gets bowl eligible with a win over Oklahoma State. I don't know how they do it, how they did it. Sorry. But, Sonny Dykes, I'm not going to say I don't know how they beat Oklahoma State. I don't know how they got to bowl eligibility. Let me rephrase. I know how they beat Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's really bad. But, but TCU gets the bowl eligibility. Don't know how they do it.
Yeah. I didn't get to watch a majority of that game because I was out doing my thing, walking around Tech's campus and stuff like that. But by all accounts, man, just the wheels have completely fallen off the Oklahoma State Cowboys train. I mean, there's nothing there. They're just, I don't know what they're going to do at this point in time. I mean, I would expect to see a lot of young guys coming in and playing these last couple of games that they have, because now you have those games to where you're not burning red shirts and stuff like that. So I expect to see some pretty younger guys out there for the Oklahoma State Cowboys over the next couple of weeks, as their season comes to an end.
The crazy thing about Oklahoma State is they really don't have that many injuries. That's the type of season they have is one of those, like Kansas, for example, has dealt with injuries all year, right? Utah has dealt with injuries all year. Kansas or Oklahoma State really hasn't. The quarterback that they had from the beginning of the year is still the quarterback. The star running back they had, the Doak Walker running back, is still the running back. The star two receivers, Stribling and Presley, they're still there. It's kind of crazy. The defense, most of the defensive guys are still there. It's really weird that this is the same team we were previewing at the beginning of the year, yet they're just bad. That's it. There's not a reason for it. They're just with the coach. That's incredible. That's that's one of the greatest coaches in Big 12 history, and they're just bad. This loss also makes Oklahoma State the streak of 18 straight winning seasons and 18 straight bowls officially comes to an end with this loss to TCU. Oklahoma State, what they're fighting for now is just not to get skunked in conference. They have 2 games left against Texas Tech and at Colorado, which means that we are probably going to be expecting their best shot at seniors trying to salvage something on senior night and not go 0-9 in conference because they ain't beating Colorado. We just saw Colorado. They're not beating Colorado. So yeah, what do you do there? I will say, gentlemen, I do have a question for you before we get out of here. On a scale from 1 to 10, Jeremy, what do you rate the Mahomes jerseys?
Oh, I'm at a solid 3.
3? Joe?
I'm at a 6. It looks better in person and on TV, or better in person than on TV. It's better than the old gray uniforms that we've had in the past. So as long as you didn't regress in that uniform design, I think you could live with it. It's not terrible, but I don't think it's badass either.
This is what I'm saying. What Mahomes should do from now on is come out with a jersey design and then let somebody else take it and run with it. Because what I realized about it is that it's not, you're right, Joe, it's not as bad as I thought it was initially. It's still very bad. The difference is that I'd give it a 3 is a good number there, Jeremy. The difference, I think, though, is that it was close to being great, right? I mentioned earlier how I thought if it was in black, it would have been incredible. I think the helmets are actually really cool, right? I think it being in a gray is actually not the least. I think what makes it a better color is the gray is actually not that bad. It's everything else.
The lack of contrast, yeah.
It's the silver letters, it's the red, it's everything else. So now I'm like, well, maybe you can keep the gray, and we just got to fix everything else, or you just you keep everything else and switch the gray to black. It's so close. It's so close to being like an 8 or 9. But the helmets are dope. I'll give credit on the helmets. I do like the helmets quite a bit. So jerseys 3, helmets like an 8 or 9. The helmets I thought were really nice. All right. Well, so all that being said, I'd be remiss, and Joe would have an aneurysm if I did not talk about the fact that the Texas Tech basketball team is 2-0. They are 2-0. Really good showing from the team so far. Nice little dunk party against Northwestern State. I think one of them even made SportsCenter. So the one by JT Toppin.
And a Kerwin 3 party in the first game.
Yeah, oh my, yeah, and the first game got a little close early on, right? So Texas Tech, the first game, their season opener against Bethune-Cookman, got a little close in the first half, and you're like, oh, and then we went on a 17-0 run to end the first half, and they're like, okay, never mind. Because I think at the point it was a 4-point game at one point, like with 10 minutes to go or 8 minutes to go in the first half.
4 or 5. Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I was there, but I don't remember the exact. I just remember the 3 party.
Yeah, so then we went crazy. But we started off our season against 2 HBCU schools. 3 of our first 4 games are against HBCU schools. So first game, Texas Tech wins 94-61 against Bethune-Cookman. Second game, Texas Tech wins 86-65 against Northwestern State. We do play Wyoming to get a little revenge against the Cowboys on Wednesday. And then St. Joseph's on ESPN2. So that'll be really the first look for most people to see what Texas Tech basketball is looking like. See what the basketball team is looking like and with these new additions. And Joe, you got anything else to say about the team?
No, just, there's still some lingering injuries out there. I know EY, Elijah Hawkins, and Christian Anderson, all pretty big contributors or supposed to be contributors to this team, have been held out of the first 2 basketball games, but they have done the pregame warmups and stuff like that. They just haven't played the games just yet. But I mean, you got to feel pretty confident in what you have in JT Toppin, Darian Williams, Kerwin Walton, Devin Cambridge coming up back from that ACL injury. I mean, I think you like the depth pieces you have right there, because whenever you start adding those guys in, then you're talking about potentially 9 to 10 deep, just on any given night. And given how stacked the Big 12 is, you need to have some of these guys seeing meaningful minutes so you could be successful in the Big 12 for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, you talk about how stacked the Big 12 is. Somebody had a home game in Toyota Center and got whooped by an Auburn team who can't do things correctly. So Auburn, they went viral on social media over the weekend because one of their players is a sourpuss and was upset that his team was doing good things. And then they got into a fight on a team flight on their way from Auburn to Houston. The flight had to be turned back around and land back in Auburn, Alabama, and then take off without the 2 people that were getting into a fight. And so they came to Houston. I think everybody predicted U of H and LJ Cryan gang were going to win that game because, have all the problems, but Auburn took it to them. So Houston not starting off their season as strong as you would expect. LJ Cryer actually really struggled from the field, 5 for 14 shooting. Emmanuel Sharp, in my opinion, didn't get the ball enough in that game because he actually, if anything, was the guy they should have been feeding. And our old boy Malik Wilson doing what he does, which is not really putting anything on the box score, but good defense. But anyways, so yeah, no, that's I think the first big shock of the college basketball season is Houston going down early. But Baylor was able to get a good win over 16th ranked Arkansas. So some noise at the top of the ticket. Jeremy, anything else you want to say to the people?
Texas Tech soccer, women's soccer plays at home. What might be the last home game of the season. Selected as the 8th seed in the NCAA tournament, facing off against LSU. Kind of a terrible side of the bracket because if we get past LSU, we got probably, unless a miracle happens, number 1 Duke, who that's probably that's a tremendous soccer team. Boy, we're gonna need some serious work to get past that. But tournament again, and if we happen to beat Duke, we're going all the way. Calling it now.
No, you heard it here first, folks. Jeremy Gillen is predicting a Texas Tech soccer national championship.
If we get past Duke, can
you get this top tier analysis where Texas Tech is going to win a national championship? Shout out to Jeremy Gillen for that.
That's right, baby.
One thing as we go ahead.
I'll tattoo Tom Stone's signature on my ass.
with the game-winning play.
That's
oh my
right.
God. I've never wanted Texas Tech to win a national championship as bad as I do right now. I will sacrifice the football team for the soccer team to win a national championship and get Tom Stone's signature on Jeremy's ass.
At least I know the coach will be around for another year, more than another year. Jeez.
I was talking about Baylor beating Arkansas. They also did get whooped by Gonzaga. Oh, Jesus. Let me not forget that. That was bad.
They shot terrible that game, though. I mean, I don't expect that to be a constant. I mean, I think it was like 20% and 40 or 30% from the field, but then Gonzaga shot 60% and 50%. It's like,
I was about to say, they also played awful defense. It was a combination of the two for sure. Joe, anything else you want to say to the people?
Yeah, no, big shout out to my wife. Today we got some great news. She received a job that she had been trying to, kind of upgrade her stance at Texas Tech University, and now she is now a part of the communications department as a student advisor. So shout out to my wife. She hasn't told nobody yet. And I don't have to worry about her bosses listening to our podcast and before she breaks the news to them tomorrow that she's put in her 2 weeks in. But, big shout out to my wife, man. That's, like I said, that's huge. And I like to share that with you guys. I mean, I shared it with Jeremy earlier, but yeah, just big shout out to that. It's good. It's a off week for this Texas Tech football team. I'd expect to start seeing a lot of young faces in the next couple of games getting some run, just, due to the fact that they don't have to worry about, burning the red shirt. Maybe we could start moving forward and seeing what we have moving forward, and maybe we could salvage, what we have for the rest of the football season. But yeah, other than that, man, no, everything's great over here.
Queen Lopez, stacking success. I respect it. Love it. It is going to be crazy when one of her coworkers calls out sick the next day. And it's like, oh, man, what a let me listen to this, her husband's podcast real quick. Like, what? But yeah, no, all great stuff there. But yeah, no, Texas Tech still has 2 more games left in the season. I think honestly, it is what it is. I know we want to be a program that is consistently contending for championships. We're just not there yet. It's no different than what I said at the beginning of the season. We're just not there yet. But this is a team. We're going to finish the season 8-4, 7-5, or 6-6. But we're going to finish the season with a winning record, and that is just where the program is right now, right? I hate to be the guy that will think altruistically, but as much as we hate it, Joey McGuire is going to put together the best 3 years start in, what is it, one of the best 3-year starts in program history, if not the best 3-year start in program history, right? I know it sounds weird to say. I know that doesn't seem like it, but it is, right? Kenzie also, she brought up a great point in the chat also, is that we like to, a lot of the times, glamorize Leach years as if 08 was Leach years every year. And it wasn't. Early on, this was the Leach years. Early on, it was at the time they didn't play 12 games. At the time, it was 7-4 seasons, 6-5 seasons, right? 7-4 seasons, 7-4 seasons, 6-5 seasons. That was the Leach years for the longest time. And then 06, 07, 08, it culminated. But so that's, it is what it is. If the Leach years, if us getting back to Leach years means that we're going to go through numerous 7 and 8 win seasons and hopefully pop the lid on a season here, that's just, y'all have to be, I think fans just have to be okay with that. But we're going to have seasons like this all the time. And I don't think anyone's necessarily saying to get rid of Joey. I think we want Joey to be smarter about certain things, like not doing a fake punt at your 40-yard line. And then also, Kitley, he can't stay here.
Yeah,
he can't stay here. Like, that's his, and I know he's the scapegoat. I get that, but he can't stay here. And every day I look for those that are keeping score, and I don't wish ill on anyone. But Louisiana Tech had an opportunity to win a game, and they found a way to lose. And people have started a hashtag Fire Cumbie. I don't wish any ill will. I hope he has success. But if he doesn't, just saying.
There's always a place in Lubbock for you.
There's always a place in Lubbock. So for the Red.
One more thing. Didn't mean to cut you off. The Aaliyah Chavez is also on her official visit right now to Texas Tech. I just sent you guys a picture of something from her. I believe it was her Instagram. I think Texas Tech is going all out for Aaliyah, which it's a given. So her official visit is already going on. If you are in the Lubbock area tomorrow for the Lady Raiders basketball game, she will be in the house. So go out there, show your support, be loud, show Aaliyah what we can do as a fan base, if she does come to this university. And one more note on the basketball front, one of Tech's highest rated point guard recruits will be committing on November 14th. The number one point guard in Kingston Flemings down to Texas Tech in Houston. We'll see whose bag is bigger. I hope Womble's bag is a little bit bigger, but I mean, this guy is legit out of San Antonio. So hopefully, he dons the scarlet and black, this upcoming season to have a piece like that for this basketball team, for Coach McCaslin to get this kind of recruit here out of the high school ranks would be massive. So
forget the Womble bag. Give her the Mahomes. Give him the Mahomes bag. That's the Adidas bag. That's right. That's a huge, would actually be the highest rated recruit in program history. So that would be. I mean, imagine if that was back to back. That would be truly amazing. So yeah, no, absolutely. I think caught up in all the Aaliyah Chavez noises. We are missing out on the men's side of things. Speaking of Lady Raiders, they are also the Lady Raiders basketball team is also undefeated. Wins over Incarnate Word 78-48, and then Houston Christian 63-40. So all that being said, Spa's run long, and Jeremy has a lot of editing to do now. But for the people's champ that is Jeremy Gillen and the Red Raider expert Joe Lopez, this is your boy Albie Shore, and you have been listening to the Tortillas and Takes podcast, part of the 1012 Network. As always, stay wrecked, people.